Hey everybody, Bill in Virginia. Welcome back. So this episode is going to show how I make those real small pine trees that I've talked about in a couple of other episodes here recently. So you can see I've got two of them started. The core is that grapevine wire, the wrapped florist wire. And you can see I've got 4 pieces of florist wire, and it's the nice thin stuff that you can buy for about $5 for a roll of, I have no idea how many yards or meters you can get it, but it's a lot. It'll last a while. So that's going to form the core of a trunk, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to coat this one and this one with carpenter's glue. It can be any type of carpenter's glue. It could be Gorilla Glue. You could do it with white glue, except white glue runs. It's more runny before it tacks up. Same thing with Mod Podge. You could use it, but this stuff works better. So what I'm going to get started with is I'm going to coat this one with the glue, but you can see that the wires are already on. So I found that if I coat the bottom of the grapevine wire with static tack, it's very tacky, you don't need much, and it will grab these wires and hold them tight. So these wires I did yesterday, just in the evening before calling it a day, and they're on there pretty good, but I will come back in with the wood glue so that it really secures these to the trunk. And then I'll show you what I'm going to do for this next step after this cures a little bit more once I get the glue on. But I'll show you the steps as we go along here. And I'm going to take this one to this stage, and then we'll come back and take a look at it. It's just sort of finesse. But you see, you want to try to get the wires, sort of evenly spaced. It doesn't have to be perfect, but you want them on sort of all sides of that trunk. That'll come in handy here when you get a little bit farther, and I show you what we're going to do. But that'll come here in just a few minutes. So I've just coated this with static tack, and I can start to work with it real quick. It will grab these wires fairly quickly, and I'll get my fingers on them, but I'll show you here in just a second how it looks. So about 30 seconds later, and I've already got these 4 wires on, I will let this dry a little bit before I go on to the next. I don't need to let it dry very long. Then I can come back in with the glue. This is just to hold those wires in position until the wood glue is put on, and that actually is the holding power for these. So I will show you how that next step looks here. So this next step is pretty quick. It won't take long to put the glue on these. Some of you may have wondered, why is he using a rail nipper to cut wire? Well, this is an old rail nipper that I've used for years, and it is worn out. It's got some little nips and notches in it, but it's perfect for cutting florist wire. So I'm still going to get some use out of it, just not for cutting track anymore. So with this wood glue, this part doesn't take much. You just put a little bit. And really that's probably even too much. And then just get your fingers all good and gooey and just cover it up. When the glue sets, it's going to form the base of your tree. It will set around the trunk here. Keep those wires in place. And this static tack just a second ago, really. So I'm just going to still, doesn't need much. Use your fingers. This will just hold those wires in place for the next step. And the wood glue gets tacky pretty quick too. So just let that dry. All right, about 20 minutes, and then we'll come back and we'll do the next on that. So the short one is ready. The glue is pretty well dried, and I can go on to the next step on this here in just a second, and I'll show you. But first, take a look at the wire here. So this is a single strand of florist wire. And you notice that I've got loops on it. It's about an 18-inch long piece of wire. So this is the secret to making those small trees. This part is going to be down at the bottom of the tree, the lower limbs. And you can see that I twisted to make a long branch. And then as I went up, I slowly started to make shorter branches until I get up near the top where, by the time I get the loop in and I get it glued and, ground cover sprinkled on it for bark, I'll just be cutting the loops, and then at the top, nothing. This is what makes these go fast once you start building them. And I'll show you how to do or apply it here in just a second. But for this one, I've got my 4 strands. What I want to do is just kind of move a couple of them in and around so that I've got some area that I can work with, and then I'm just going to twist. Now, it's not going to be like perfect right at the top. As you put in the rest of the material and you glue it, you'll fill this in so that there'll be a better taper. But you'll just kind of spin this, and you get near the top, and you can use these to kind of spin off as smaller branches. And you will be able to use the nippers and cut them so that you get a nice shape when you get a little bit farther along. So that's ready for the next step. Here, branches will go out, so I'm just going to put a little hook on this opposite of where the branches are. I'm going to choose a spot on this, and I'm just going to start putting it on. And then what I'm going to do is I will simply spin it on the trunk. So I will adjust these as we go a little later, but I want to get them tight. And once you get going a little ways, it'll go faster. Main thing is you just do not want to go over the top of, or you want to go over the top, not go under anything that you've put on prior. And you'll just kind of work it around. This is where when you get up to here, you'll start to add a little bit of bulk to the wire piece. You'll keep going up and up. And I've still got quite a bit here, so I'm sitting in good shape, so I can keep it kind of tight. This is really kind of fun, and it does not take very long. You get good results with doing it this way. Although sometimes you might have it snag up and you're not sure exactly where. So there we go. It's a little easier when I don't have a camera like right in front of me here. I can kind of push these down as I'm winding them, and then I can adjust them all a little later. So you can see I'm getting down near the end, and I'm also nearing the top. So as I'm spinning these, I will move those wires back up so that they're out of the way. And then just gently loop it around. As I get to the top part, I can take this and bring it in and just nip it as well so that I get another branch out of it at the top. There we go. So now what I'll do is I will start to spread these out a little bit. And again, it's nature. There is no right way or wrong way to do these. They will all look decent when you're done. will do next is, just to make sure that everything is sealed well, I will take a little bit of super glue and I will tack it down near the bottom. But you can see you've got a decent looking armature. So let me get the super glue. Super glue bites into the wire and the grapevine wire really well. So just a little bit at the bottom, a little bit at the top. Just kind of grab everything. Make sure it's got a good adhesive. Now I'll just let that sit for a little bit. And then I will come back in and we'll start adding Mod Podge to this, and then sprinkle Woodland Scenic's ground cover on it to kind of build up the trunk and the limbs, make it look like a tree. So anyway, more in just a little bit. So the next step is easy and fun. This is where you get to put Mod Podge on and then sprinkle it with ground foam. So this is stuff that I've used and saved from a variety of tree builds over the past year or two. Got a little bit of it left. So while I was waiting for the glue to dry on the one, I did the other. So I've got two little pine trees here. Real easy with this. Just dab on Mod Podge, and you can use dilute white glue, whatever you want. You're painting the trunk, you're painting the branches. You want to get a nice, fairly even coat on everything. You don't want to go too crazy, so you get a lot of blobbing, and it'll thicken up as you go here. You'll get everything nice and covered, because you want that ground cover to stick. So I will get this all ready, and then I'll turn the camera back on as I'm putting the ground cover on here. All right, maybe a minute later, and you can see I've got a good coating on this, top and bottom. Then it's just taking the ground cover and sprinkling it on. You might have to do a couple of different coats of the Mod Podge to build up your base of your trunk, but we'll cover that here in a little while. So this is just Mod Podge will dry on the clear side, so if there's any bleed through, it's going to go away. And you'll be doing trim on these loops after a while anyway, top and bottom. All right, there we go. Now I'll set this aside, let it dry, and I'll get the other one done. And then we'll go on to the next step. About a minute later, there's the second one ready for its coating. So I'm going to do that, and I'll show you the end result. Second one is done as well, just a few seconds later. Now I will let these dry overnight before I do the next step. And the next step is going to be to cut the loops and then adjust the branches. And then I'm ready to put material on and finish these up. Won't take long. My work day has come to an end, and these have dried overnight. So what I'm going to do next is I am going to come back in and I'm going to apply some more Mod Podge, but not in all areas. So you can kind of see where the trunk tapers into where I did the wire wrap. So I'm going to add some Mod Podge there, just so that I can build that up so it looks a little bit more natural. It's going to be hidden anyway, but I'm not quite a perfectionist, but I like things to look good. And I'm also going to build up from about here down so that I can put an additional coating of the ground cover on it. Over here, I will add a little bit at the same location. You can see about middle of the tree where the wire takes over from the piece of grapevine wire. And probably do the trunk as well. This will be a light coat, just enough to hold another layer of the ground cover on. And this will dry this evening. Then I'm going to come back in and I will start to clip the loops and show you how to shape it. But be right back here. All right, just a little bit of Mod Podge, a little bit more of the turf, and I've got thickness on the trunk that looks more natural. So I'm just going to set this aside, let it dry, and do the other one. It's been about an hour, and you can see everything is pretty well dried up already. The shape of it looks a lot better, adding that little bit of Mod Podge and that little bit more of the ground cover. Next step is to trim the loops. So my nips, and this is where you can also kind of look at the tree. You can see this one's kind of on the long side. So for that one, I'm just going to take the loop really close, take it off, and then what I'll do is I just kind of go along and I'll snip off the outer part of the loop. So what I'll do then is I will come back in, and you can kind of see how this is. I will bend those apart ever so slightly, making them more straight. And I'll do that to all of them. And then I can kind of move some of them up, some of them down, so that I get more of a random appearance with those little pieces of branch. It gives a decent shape to the tree, makes it look like real branches. So what I will do is I will cut all of these. It'll take about a minute or so, and spread the branches, and I'll show you the finished result, because then it's ready to go on to the next step. So both of them are now trimmed, and I've got what looks like nice trees. Next step is I will get ready to start putting the first bit of flocking on it to get the limbs started. Show you how we do that in just a second. So for this part, I'm just going to add a little bit of Mod Podge just on the tips of these. So I'm not going to put much on. I'm going to, so that I don't cover up all the nice branch detail. Nice thing about Mod Podge is it sets, but it doesn't set too quick. It has some tack to it, so you got some time to work. I will go through and I will cover all of the branch tips, and then I'll come back and show you the application of this down here. All right, this one is ready. I've gotten everything applied on the top as well as the bottom of those branch tips. Now this is 2mm static grass, any color that you want, and then I've mixed in some Woodland Scenics blended earth with green colors. So this is probably about a two-part static grass to 1 part blended turf, and you just sprinkle it on. Just kind of let it fall, and it will grab on and do its thing. If you got a little bit of the white showing, you don't worry about it, because it will dry clear. And you're going to come back in and you're going to do more anyway, unless you like the look of it at this stage, and then you can just kind of leave it. Sometimes I will come in and sort of throw some stuff at it just to kind of get on the tips of the branches. Okay, a little tap, and there we go. We have the start of a nice little pine tree. Like I said, you could leave it like this if you wanted, but I'm going to come back in a little bit and I will add more, once this dries a little bit, to the sides to kind of make the branches get bigger, expand, so it looks a little bit fuller than it does now. But I'm going to do the next one, and then we'll come back and finish these off. So getting close to wrapping up on these. One more thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to take some of the Mod Podge, and I'm going to come in and put it on the sides of these branches and just kind of get on the static grass so that I can make them a little fuller. Doesn't need a lot, just a little bit on this step. And then I might come back in and put a little bit more on top after I do another application, just to kind of see what the result looks like. But I'll show you what it looks like here after a bit. But you can see where I'm putting it on just on the edges. So just a quick side-by-side comparison. This is the one where I added a little bit more Mod Podge and fleshed out the branches a little bit. I have yet to do it on that one, so I'm going to do that one as well. Let it dry and we'll take a look at it. And that might actually do it for these. This one's looking pretty good, so hopefully a second application on the next one will be good enough for me, and these can go on the layout. And there we go. Both of those little trees are on the ON30 in position behind the buildings up along the cliff. They are a nice looking little tree. So I'm happy with the results. They were quick and easy. And like all the trees that I make and the techniques that I show, if you do them in batches, kind of plan it out like a manufacturing process, you can build a lot in a short amount of time. So with that, that's going to wrap this one up. Keep having fun on your layouts. Until next time.